A young human spent 20 years enduring hardships and finally became an officer in the Demon Lord's army, only to have his secret discovered by a young maid. Aiku is human, but his grandfather was Ronbeku, a great magician in the Demon Lord's army. As the grandson of a great magician, Aiku's power is as you would expect. With just one brigade, he captured a city in less than a week. He then went alone to the Lord's room and offered 3 choices: surrender and be captured, commit suicide, or escape while he admired the view from the window. Unfortunately, the Lord chose none of these and attacked Aiku instead. Without surprise, Aiku knocked him out with a powerful spell, but then ordered his men to treat the Lord and the surrendered soldiers. Aiku's actions were all monitored by his direct superior through a crystal ball, who was very pleased with his performance. However, Aiku immediately cast a barrier spell in the room to create a protective shield. Despite being in the Demon Lord's army for many years, Aiku, being human, could never get used to the brutality of war. He removed his mask, revealing his true identity. Aiku's master was the great magician Ronbeku, who understood the high civilization that once existed in this world. On a whim, he had picked up Aiku as a baby and raised him, teaching him knowledge and magic. His last words to Aiku were a warning not to reveal the lost civilization, as it would bring disaster. He also instructed Aiku never to remove his mask and robe. If his true identity were exposed, the Demon Lord would never spare him. Thus, these 20 years had been very tough for Aiku. Fortunately, no one could see his true face in the room protected by the barrier. Then, he looked down to see a terrified young maid who realized she had been discovered, knelt down begging for mercy, and promised she saw nothing, only to knock herself unconscious when she looked up. Aiku, seeing tears on her face, felt like crying himself as his secret of 20 years was so easily discovered. Then, hearing his subordinates outside, he had to put the mask back on and check the situation. A half-beast subordinate thought there were too many human survivors from the war. Aiku made up an excuse, saying it didn't matter since the current Demon Lord valued results, and if all humans were killed, who would pay taxes? This was a trade city after all. Who would handle the trade if no humans were left? The half-beast was convinced. Later, a group of humans stopped them, asking how much tax they would have to pay to the Demon Lord's army. Aiku surprisingly said it would be the same as before, delighting the humans. He added that anyone who dared resist the Demon Lord's army would be punished, no matter how many. After showing off, he disappeared on the spot and reappeared in a small, dark room with a huge magic puppet behind him. Fortunately, Aiku reacted quickly and dodged. With no other choice, Aiku wielded his magic wand and quickly destroyed the puppet with magic. His direct superior was watching everything from the side. This was just a trial given to him last time. This person is Serufiro, the commander of the 7th Legion of the Demon Lord's army, and the only demon who knows Aiku's secret. Aiku couldn't help but complain, asking the commander to call him in a normal way next time, then prepared to report on the trade city of Aruseno. However, Serufiro said she already knew about it. This time, Aiku was called in because the Demon Lord wanted to meet him, probably curious about how he conquered Aruseno in just a week. With no choice, Aiku had to go to the Demon Lord's castle with Serufiro. Meanwhile, the young maid woke up. The room was enveloped by a barrier, and she couldn't get out. She noticed food and a note prepared on the table by Aiku, asking her to stay put. Unfortunately, the maid couldn't read, but she still grabbed the food and devoured it. Aiku and Serufiro arrived at the Demon Lord's castle, surrounded by a dense miasma. As a human, Aiku instinctively felt uncomfortable. There were 2 guards at the entrance checking everyone entering the castle. Aiku quickly asked Serufiro what to do. Serufiro reassured him and said he would handle it, then blew a breath towards Aiku, surrounding him with dense magic power. The guards remarked, fitting for Ronbeku's grandson. Aiku was surprised his grandfather was still so famous after his death. As Ronbeku's grandson, Aiku entered the Demon Lord's castle smoothly and walked through a long corridor to the meeting hall. Aiku was nervous. He had heard of the current Demon Lord's reputation, named Dairo Kuten, who had overturned the demons' losing streak against humans in just one battle. Known as the King of Demons and the strongest man, he was ruthless and cold, killing the incompetent without discrimination. Conversely, If he saw potential, he would promote them regardless of their magic or skills. This personality brought reform to the demon army, uniting the often infighting demons. Thinking about meeting him, Aiku felt nervous yet excited. Unexpectedly, the legendary strongest man turned out to be a beautiful girl. The demon lord had indeed called Aiku because of Aruseno. Aiku humbly stated it was all Serufiro's arrangement. The demon lord seemed to imply something, praising Aiku for being truly humble, just like a human. Fortunately, Serufiro quickly intervened, mentioning he was Ranbeku's grandson. The demon lord then understood, noting it was not strange for Ranbeku's grandson to be meticulous. She asked if that was why Aiku did not kill the residents or punish the leaders, contributing Aruseno almost bloodlessly. Aiku knew this was the demon lord's test and seized the chance to defend himself, stating that humans fear terror but do not submit to it. Thus, instead of killing the human rulers and having demons rule, it was better to let humans continue ruling to maintain their productivity, which was more beneficial for the demon army. He also mentioned his deceased grandfather, admitting this was Ranbeku's theory. Although they only exchanged a few words, Aiku had a vague idea that the demon lord, like Ranbeku, knew about the civilizations that existed in the past. She probably used that knowledge to bring reforms to the demon army. The demon lord teleported in front of Aiku and said he was different from other demons. She was curious about his true appearance under the mask. After saying this, she left with her subordinates. Aiku finally breathed a sigh of relief. He had been extremely nervous, especially since the demon lord had noticed his mask. However, Serufiro comforted him, saying the demon lord intended to reward him. When Aiku returned to the room, the young maid had eaten, drunk, and was sound asleep. She immediately knelt down upon noticing Aiku's return, begging for her life and promising to do anything. Aiku wasn't a murderer and wouldn't kill to silence someone. He first asked the maid for her name. Slaves were called by numbers, and she was the 13th, but her mother always called her Sati. Sati knew Aiku's big secret, and even though he couldn't let her go, he decided to keep her as his maid. Upon learning she was spared, Sati hugged Aiku tightly. Later, Aiku became the lord of Ibanirasu, a reward from the demon lord. It was a town further south than Aruseno, and would become the front line of the war. Although small, it was very important to the demon army. Aiku's duty was to protect the town and double the tax revenue. This was more of a punishment than a reward, given the ongoing human and demon conflicts. Even maintaining taxes was difficult. But to avoid arousing the demon lord's suspicion, he had to take on the task. His first order was to repair the town walls, initially planned for 6 months, within 1 month. This meant relying not only on human labor, but also on the demon army. They worked in shifts every 8 hours, continuing 24 hours a day, and were given bonuses to increase motivation. The half-orc subordinates were amazed by Aiku's intelligence, finally understanding why he was considered a key member of the demon army. Besides intelligence, Aiku's power was formidable. With a wave of his magic wand, a boulder instantly turned to dust. The half-orcs saw a bright future with their leader, believing he could become the next demon lord. The battle between the Demon King's army and humanity has reached an intense stage. Currently, the humans are at a disadvantage. To break the deadlock, Rogiaria is considering forming an alliance with neighboring countries. Upon hearing his subordinates' report, the Demon King remains unflustered. It is now time for that person to step in. Meanwhile, Aiku is diligently handling official duties, gratefully receiving tea brought by a newly recruited human maid. On the other side, the leader of the human White Rose Knights, Arisu, is summoned by the lord of the castle. The lord wants her to lead troops to recapture Ibanirasu, the small town now under Aiku's control. In a small town in Rogiaria, there is a peaceful scene. A street hustler is performing tricks and cheating people out of their money. If you guess which cup the bead is under, you can win money. Sati immediately points to the middle cup, but she lacks the money to bet. The hustler, eyeing her voluptuously, lewdly suggests betting with something else. Before he can reveal the answer, all the cups start floating, revealing no bead underneath. The crowd quickly realizes his deceit and demands their money back. Sati is then picked up by Aiku, who has reverted to his human attire, no longer hiding behind a mask and robe. They are in the town to gather intelligence and confirm that the rumors of the prince's alliance are true. This ancient pact, which has been enacted 3 times before, always results in the Demon King's forces retreating when the demon tribe attacks and the alliance members join forces. Seeing Sati's worried expression, Aiku can't help but laugh. Although she is human, she worries about the demons. In the human world, slaves remain slaves for life and are discarded like the children in the alleys if abandoned by their masters. Aiku comforts Sati by patting her head, reassuring her that the current Demon King is the strongest and wisest ever, so there is no need to worry. As they prepare to leave, the swindler who Sati exposed calls out to them, angry and seeking revenge with a strong man beside him, threatening violence unless compensated with money or bodily payment. Aiku looks around, sees no one, and uses ice magic to freeze the strong man's feet, while ice spikes hang threateningly above the swindler. The swindler, unable to move, quickly begs for mercy. Aiku then takes the opportunity to ask him about the town's military activities and why the soldiers seem so anxious. The swindler honestly replies that he heard about the prince's alliance formed to fight the demon tribe, and the Rogiaria army wants to act before the alliance to take revenge on the demons. Aiku immediately understands that acting first would demonstrate Rogiaria's presence to other nations, gaining an advantage at the prince's conference and enhancing their post-war influence. However, defeat would severely weaken Rogiaria's position. They plan to attack Ibanirasu, which Aiku governs, and is the weakest in defense. After hearing this, Aiku leaves without caring about the swindler and his companion. Back in his office, his loyal subordinate Ririsu visits. She immediately questions who the little maid beside Aiku is. The maid respectfully introduces herself, but Ririsu shows no interest, and even attempts to take her position, leading to an argument between them. By evening, the White Rose Knights indeed arrive outside Ibanirasu. The soldiers prepare, setting up catapults. As the leader commands the attack, the ground suddenly splits open, releasing countless skeleton soldiers, followed by goblins above and orcs surrounding them from behind. The knights fall into the demon's ambush. The commander orders a retreat upon realizing the danger. This successful ambush is thanks to Aiku scouting the enemy. While his half-beast subordinate praises him, an arrow suddenly hits Aiku from behind, and he collapses. That night, the commander receives news of the knights' defeat and immediately orders the imprisonment of their leader, Arisu, despite knowing it would affect the soldiers' morale. He disregards this, caring only about his reputation before the king. Meanwhile, Aiku quickly recovers to find his beautiful superior, Serufiro, lying beside him, provocatively misstating their interaction. Aiku is speechless, remembering nothing. Serufiro saved him and reminds him that this battle caused no human casualties, which might arouse suspicion from the Demon King. Aiku remains committed to coexistence between humans and demons. After treating Aiku's wounds, Serufiro leaves. Aiku ponders over the arrow, suspecting an intruder or spy. Hearing noise outside, he dons his mask and robe. Indeed, Sati and Ririsu arrive, fighting over Aiku. Eventually, Ririsu is thrown out by the half-beast subordinate. Aiku asks him to investigate where the imprisoned leader of the attacking knights, Arisu, is located. After learning her location, Aiku immediately takes Ririsu to confirm something with her in person. Sneaking into a prison should have been a quiet affair, but with Ririsu involved, discretion was impossible. Ririsu knocked out the guards, leading Aiku inside, and subdued more guards to get the keys to the top floor. Before they could ascend, other soldiers were alerted and chased after them. Ririsu volunteered to cover their retreat and handed the keys to Aiku. Before leaving, Aiku reminded her to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Despite agreeing, Ririsu still roughed up the soldiers. Aiku pretended not to notice and quickly reached the top floor to open Arisu's cell, only to find it empty. Suddenly, a figure with a dagger attacked him. Aiku dodged and subdued Arisu quickly. His purpose was not to harm her, but to ask if she was behind the assassin sent to Ibanirasu to kill him. He wanted to confirm if the one who shot at him was under Arisu's command. Arisu avoided the question, instead asking if Aiku was a real demon. Before Aiku could respond, soldiers caught up to them, and Arisu held her dagger to his neck, asking more directly, "Are you human?" Aiku used all his effort to sneak into the prison just to ask Alice a question, only to be taken hostage by her. Aris then questioned if he was human. Amid their standoff, soldiers were close to reaching them. Ike then used his psychic control to dull everyone's senses and launched a non-lethal attack to repel the soldiers. Unexpectedly, Aris also fell down. Ike quickly teleported to catch her and introduced himself as the captain of the undead brigade of the demon army, clarifying he couldn't be human. Humans couldn't possibly be officers in the demon army. He then asked Aris again if she had sent assassins to kill him during battle. Aris, a kingdom knight unwilling to speak with demons, refused to answer. Ike pinned her against the wall and used mind-reading magic. Aris caught them, demanding Ike do the same to her. Ike, having already gotten his answer, turned and left, leaving Aris displeased. Despite their enmity, Ike had not killed her, and even praised her clear and upright heart. Out of pity for humans, Ike kindly advised Aris not to be too discouraged, but to focus on strategies for after her defeat. He then returned with Aris, who was reluctant to leave, missing her rare chance to be alone with Ike. However, Ike, uninterested, stepped into the portal to see his maid and showed her the rice he brought from the capital, Rosas. The Demon King had ordered the city's taxes doubled. Since Evanlios was an agricultural city, switching to rice, which had much higher productivity than wheat, would greatly increase harvests and reduce the need for farmers. These people could then work in production, like weapon or brick making, increasing services like cooking. This would naturally enrich the nation. Ike simplified it for Shati. They could eat their fill and collect lots of taxes. Shati immediately praised her master. However, Ike was unclear on how to cook the rice and left the problem to Shati, as he had another issue to address. He then gathered his group to find out who had shot at him before. It is now known that the arrow is from enemy forces, but Arisu, the leader of the White Rose Knights, was not involved. This means someone impersonated the White Rose Knights to shoot the arrow at him. The worst possibility is that there is a traitor within their brigade. Ike used mind-reading magic on all the members, first seeing the half-orc beside him, who was infatuated with Ike, admiring his greatness. Ike could barely stand to look, but he carefully distinguished the thoughts of others. Sure enough, one goblin seemed very guilty. Ike teleported in front of him and directly asked if he was a spy. Later, Ike went to see Serufiro, who was bathing at the time and did not shy away from being naked in front of Ike. Guessing there was a traitor in Ike's group and that Ike came to catch him, she asked who it was. Surprisingly, it was the vice captain of the 7th Legion, the one-eyed goblin Jesu, a veteran of many battles. Serufiro was not surprised and suggested that Ike make him pay the appropriate price. On the other side, Jesu, knowing Ike had gone to see leader Serufiro, got a bit panicked. He repeatedly confirmed with his subordinates that they really hit him that day. His subordinates affirmed it. Then, another subordinate reported that they couldn't contact the undercover sent to the undead brigade, and that Ike was coming alone. Despite feeling anxious, the vice captain had to pretend to be calm and went to the appointment with a group of his men. They stopped beating around the bush, openly admitting to trying to kill Ike, who declared he was there to clean house. The vice captain laughed. "Just you alone?" As his men surrounded Ike, an explosion suddenly erupted behind them, engulfing the sky in flames and raining fireballs, destroying the city. It turned out the cleanup wasn't by Ike, but by leader Serufiro herself. She remembered Ike was also below after unleashing her power, but it didn't matter since he wouldn't be harmed. Serufiro's subordinates took care of the goblins while Ike confronted Jesu, offering him two choices: surrender now, or wait until he lost everything. Jesu didn't want either option. Just as he tried to escape using his men as shields, he actually managed to flee because he had set up secret passages in the city earlier. The vice captain reached the forest outside the city via the secret passage, nearly getting hit by a fireball the next second. Ike had placed a familiar on Jesu, allowing him to follow directly. Angered and embarrassed, the deputy leader attacked Ike, who easily blocked the attack and cast a spell that sent Jesu flying into a tree. Ike then used a binding spell to tie him up. It was the first time seeing someone use a binding play on a goblin. At this point, Jesu had no choice but to surrender, and then offered Ike an olive branch, asking if he wanted to collaborate to overtake the Demon Lord's army. Given the long-lasting war between demons and humans, despite being demons who could enjoy tormenting humans, the current Demon Lord forbade needless killing, causing dissatisfaction among many in his army. However, this did not include their 7th Legion's leader, Serufiro. Jesu, seeing Aiku as remarkably intelligent and capable, thought they could work together. But he did not know Aiku was human. Unsurprised by Aiku's refusal, Jizu had only intended to distract Aiku to launch a surprise attack. However, Aiku dodged and then read Jizu's mind just as the leader, Serufiro, arrived. She demanded that Jizu reveal his accomplices. Serufiro was less gentle than Aiku, but before Jizu could do anything, he showed signs of poisoning, appearing in severe pain. The spell to read his mind was also ineffective, likely to prevent Jizu from naming his accomplices. Despite this, hearing Serufiro's promise to help him seek revenge, Jizu used his last breath to name the person involved. Soon after, Serufiro and Aiku were summoned by the Demon Lord. It turned out that the mastermind behind this plot was a significant figure, the leader of the Third Legion, whose ultimate goal was to behead the Demon Lord himself. After hearing this, the Demon Lord was indifferent, and directly asked what the intention was behind the Third Legion's leader standing behind Aiku and Serufiro. The greatest traitor in the Demon King's army turned out not to be Aiku, the human, but Basteo, the commander of the Third Legion. Basteo, playing the villain, accused first by preemptively telling the Demon King that Aiku and Serufiro had killed the vice commander of the 7th Legion, framing himself as a victim to undermine him and seize control of his 3rd Legion. Serufiro nearly started a fight with Basteo on the spot, but was stopped by the Demon King. The wise Demon King had already seen through the lies, knowing Basteo was dishonest. Although Serufiro was indeed loyal, he was expected to take responsibility for his subordinates' misconduct. According to military law, both parties were to be punished. Just as both were prepared to accept their punishment, the Demon King halted the proceedings, considering the ongoing war with humans and the significant impact of losing 2 commanders. However, he couldn't let the issue slide, so he decided they should duel, with the victor being justified. The duel involved controlling magical creatures called puppet soldiers. The 2 commanders, acting solely as strategists and not direct combatants, would compete to see who could eliminate the opponent's puppet soldiers first. The loser would die instantly, essentially testing their command skills. The Demon King even allowed for proxies, so Serufiro chose Aiku to fight on his behalf. Aiku was bewildered and felt the enormous responsibility of Serufiro's life weighing on him. Serufiro, confident in Aiku's superior command abilities, entrusted his life to him, leaving Aiku no choice but to accept the heavy task and do his best to win. Aiku then examined the puppet soldiers, which were identical in capabilities, emphasizing the reliance on the commander's strategic skills. Weapons were freely chosen. After reviewing, Aiku pondered strategies and sought advice from Sati, who knew nothing about combat and preferred to solve problems over tea. However, inspired by Sati's preference for using a broom in a fight, Aiku considered maintaining a distance as a key to victory, though he expected his opponent to think similarly. Sati recalled a Demon Lord mentioning the effectiveness of crossbows. While Aiku recognized the advantages of crossbows, he felt something stronger was needed: a rifle. Sati, unfamiliar with such a weapon, listened as Aiku explained its superior power and range for unilateral attacks from hundreds of meters away. They approached Serufiro, the 7th Legion's commander and a master alchemist, for help. However, Serufiro, having never seen such a weapon, was indifferent and instead invited Aiku to play in the water. "Aiku, if you won't play, let me do it." On the other side, Basteo also received intelligence that Serufiro had Aiku replace him in the battle. However, Basteo did not underestimate his opponent, just because he was only a brigade commander. He planned to use the sword in his hand as his weapon, made from the teeth of a black dragon, capable of slicing through iron like mud. He ordered his subordinates to mass-produce it, not only in the quantities needed for the puppet soldiers, but even more. Another subordinate came to report that victory was imminent for Lord Basteo. Aiku and his group were completely unaware of this. It seemed Aiku was genuinely playing in the water with his elder sister. Just as he emerged, he encountered the Demon King and hastily knelt down, not even dressed. Aiku was hoping to be lucky since he wasn't wearing a mask and thought the Demon King wouldn't recognize him. However, the Demon King handed him a large package which, upon opening, turned out to be the very rifle he needed. The Demon King even called out his name and told him no longer to hide. Ranbeku had already told her the truth a long time ago. She hadn't exposed him because she needed Aiku's help to fulfill her wish. Despite the Demon King's great power, it was still not enough. She needed someone willing to fight for her and help build the world she envisioned. Aiku was one of her chosen ones. With the Demon King saying so, Aiku naturally responded immediately. After the Demon King left, he took the rifle to find Serufiro. Just a rifle wasn't enough. He also had Serufiro help make some bullets. Seeing Serufiro's nonchalant demeanor, Aiku felt conflicted, knowing that if he lost, it was Serufiro who would die. Before the bullets were even completed, an explosion occurred elsewhere, a non-magical one, as Aiku had arranged for his subordinates to make gunpowder earlier. It seems it was successful. Aiku asked Serufiro to help make 500 lead bullets and had a beautiful subordinate prepare the gunpowder. With everyone eagerly anticipating, the day of the duel finally arrived. The demons in the audience waved their flags and cheered. The duelists were in place. Basteo's puppet soldiers were fully armed, each holding different weapons. Aiku's puppet soldiers still looked the same, but now they held very sturdy-looking shields. Basteo began to boast loudly, putting his head on his neck and declaring that they would surely lose. Aiku remained non-committal, recognizing that the armor on the opposing puppet soldiers was made of Damascus steel, a high-grade metal capable of deflecting arrows and resisting spears, also a gift from the Demon King. Basteo thought the Demon King wanted him to win, not knowing that the Demon King had directly given Aiku firearms. Lord, times have changed. Aiku was unsure if the Demon King wanted a fair fight or was testing his own strength. He planned to win first, then ask for clarity. Finally, the duel officially began. Basteo ordered his puppet soldiers to fire arrows first. Aiku's puppet soldiers immediately raised their shields to defend, but some were still hit. Meanwhile, Basteo's puppet soldiers charged directly into the enemy camp. The situation was almost completely one-sided. Aiku's puppet soldiers had no offensive capabilities, and several quickly fell. However, with a gunshot, the tide of the battle instantly turned. It seems that Damascus steel could not withstand rifle fire after all. The puppet soldiers, well-trained, retreated after their shots to reload and were replaced by a fresh batch. The battlefield was filled with gunfire. Basteo's puppet soldiers were powerless to resist and fell one by one, disappearing on the spot. It was a total rout. The Demon King then approached the battlefield and offered Basteo two choices: commit suicide to preserve his honor, or die by her hand. Basteo made a third choice. His subordinates, already prepared, took a cue from him and fired a cold arrow at the Demon King's back. The Demon King caught it barehanded, but unexpectedly, the arrowhead was attached to an explosive ball. An explosion erupted at the Demon King's location, followed by consecutive explosions in the spectator stands. The unprepared demons were blown apart instantly. It turns out Basteo had planned a rebellion today. With the Demon King dead, he stood on the platform, raised his own head, and declared himself the new Demon King from today. Aiku won the duel. Unexpectedly, his opponent cheated and caused a rebellion on the spot. The duel site quickly descended into chaos. Unprepared spectators were caught in a massacre. Aiku stood by and watched. Basteo offered him an olive branch, suggesting he join his army, as it would eventually be his anyway. He offered Aiku the position of commander of the 7th Legion. Aiku watched as half-human warriors were killed by Basteo's skeleton soldiers, then firmly rejected his offer. His reason was that he could never become the evil king. Meanwhile, his staff emitted a bright light. Seeing Aiku's refusal, Basteo sent a horde of skeleton soldiers after him. Aiku defeated them with a powerful move. Then, as arrows flew around, Aiku dodged and moved away from the battlefield. From a higher position, he cast a spell of magical rain, immobilizing the skeleton soldiers touched by the magic. Aiku then flew toward Basteo, aiming directly at his head. He placed his hand on Basteo's face and cast a hellish explosion. Basteo's head rolled off, turning him into a headless knight. The scene continued to explode as the skeleton soldiers Aiku had destroyed stood up again, being undead. Aiku remained calm as the skeleton soldiers pulled off their heads and threw them like bombs. They also attempted a sneak attack from behind, but Aiku swiftly used ice magic to stop them. He then activated Soul Vision, seeming to stop time, and charged, knocking them away. Aiku is a melee mage, yet Endless skeleton soldiers kept coming. Aiku knew his magic would eventually run out. There was also a sniper aiming at him. Although Aiku quickly raised a protective shield, the protective formation was half destroyed. He was running out of breath and knew he couldn't keep going. After careful thought, he realized that dark magic was ineffective against the undead, essentially animated corpses. Suddenly, Aiku had an idea. As the skeleton soldiers surrounded him again, a golden light enveloped the battlefield, purifying the skeleton soldiers. The sniper, ready to strike, had his arm severed. It turned out that Serufiro had arrived with members of the 7th Legion. They had been dealing with adversaries outside, and had now come to support Aiku. The evil king, who had been watching from above, decided to give Basteo another chance. He set up a fair duel with Aiku. Winning would spare his life. Thus, Aiku stepped forward, and he and Basteo charged at each other. One swung a greatsword, the other deployed a magical array. Unexpectedly, Basteo's greatsword shattered Aiku's magic array. Basteo, appearing frenzied, continuously hacked at Aiku's defense. Aiku, left with no choice, retreated to the sky to counter Basteo. Traditionally, the one on the left in a duel loses, and the outcome was as expected. The golden light seemed to devour everything, dissolving Basteo's purple magic and even transforming his arm. Serufiro watched incredulously, recognizing the white magic Aiku used, unaware of when he had learned it. Even the Demon Lord didn't seem surprised. This story starts from Aiku's childhood. He studied magic daily with Ronbeku and one day asked if there was magic that could restore wilted flowers. Ronbeku explained this was within the realm of white magic. Aiku expressed his desire to learn it, but was initially refused because white magic, unlike other types, originates from a heart of compassion, something demons typically lack. As Aiku needed to disguise himself as a demon, he couldn't openly learn white magic, feared more than any sword or spell. Despite this, Ronbeku began to teach him in secret. Basteo's attack failed again, and Aiku verbally chastised him, declaring him unworthy of being a demon lord. His disregard for his subordinates' lives was excessively cruel. Elevating such a person to rule was wrong. Basteo, increasingly agitated, launched a powerful strike at Aiku, who, having no choice, unleashed his white magic. A touch with golden light from his hand completely purified the headless knight. Serufiro confronted Aiku, asking if he had learned white magic from Ronbeku. By then, there was little left unsaid, and Serufiro had anticipated Basteo's rebellion, pushing Aiku to duel in her stead while she and others waited in ambush. The Demon Lord, foreseeing these events, allowed Basteo to proceed, merely to give Aiku a chance to prove himself. Now, with the 3rd Legion's leader gone, Aiku naturally ascended to the position, equal to Serufiro. Once the Demon Lord departed, the subordinates gathered around, displaying genuine affection for Aiku, embracing and weeping. Serufiro, dissatisfied, sought an explanation from the Demon Lord. Ultimately, Aiku decided to be honest with the Demon Lord, revealing his human identity and discussing his governance of a town where humans and demons coexisted peacefully, even assisting one another. From the beginning, Aiku aimed for coexistence, a goal disclosed when Serufiro took him as an apprentice. He still had much to learn from Serufiro, and thus could not take the role of Legion leader. However, he promised the Demon Lord to make Ibanarasu the first town where demons and humans live together in harmony. Aiku rejected the Demon Lord to stay beside his beautiful boss, Serufiro. Yet he promised the Demon Lord to create a town where demons and humans could coexist. Recently, he investigated, finding the town's soil and climate ideal for crop rotation, which involves planting different crops in succession. Currently, the town lets farmland lie fallow after harvesting wheat, then plants grass for livestock. This extends the fallow period. Aiku plans to alternate barley, clover, wheat, and rutabaga, keeping fields continuously productive. Clover will be specifically for feeding livestock, ensuring no one, demon, human, or animal, goes hungry. While handling official duties, Aiku's 2nd senior burst in, announcing that the King's Alliance had acted last night, attempting an assault on Alistair's 2nd Legion and suffering a wipeout. This legion, primarily composed of young, strong demons, faced an unexpected defeat. A curious maid asked Aiku about the King's Alliance. An ancient human pact formed when Demon Lord armies grew too strong for any single nation. Whenever this occurred, the continental nations united. There had been 3 alliances, each repelling the demon lords. Aiku, examining the map, feared the alliance's next target might be their Ibanerasu, since the recently recaptured Arsino was a strategic point. To take Arsino, the alliance would need to attack Ibanerasu first. Though demons were individually stronger, the united human soldiers were numerous and challenging to defeat. If Ibanerasu fell, the alliance could quickly gather at Arsino, overwhelming the already outmatched demon lord's forces, forcing a retreat to Dwarburg, home of the demon lord. This could endanger Aiku's dream of a demon-human coexistence. To bridge the military gap, Aiku decided to mass-produce matchlock guns, but his subordinates reported it unfeasible. After an elder sister tried replicating a few with alchemy, she found they broke after a single shot due to the limitations of recreating precise mechanisms with alchemy. The power and durability were inadequate. However, she proposed assembling the parts from metal and wood manually, a task surely suited for dwarves. But, defeated by humans in past wars, dwarves now wandered globally. Mass production would require many dwarves and someone to manage them. With the Dwarf King imprisoned in Isma's kingdom, the Dwarf King was once threatened by human officers to make weapons for their army, using his son as leverage. With no choice, he complied while confined in a dark dungeon. Reflecting on his past, he suddenly heard noises outside. At the door, all the guards lay defeated. A demon girl with keys freed him, annoyed by his many questions, and knocked him out to take him away. On the way, Lilith and the second senior started bickering, attracting other soldiers. Energized by the arrival of robust young men, Lilith eagerly engaged them, but one escaped, only to be punched away by the second senior, knocking open a door. After escaping through the sewer, it was daylight, and soldiers surrounded them at the exit. Relying on magic, Lilith knocked them out with a powerful spell, with others following behind. Aiku, seeing this, was speechless as he had advised discretion, yet had to intervene to cover their escape. Fortunately, they secured the Dwarf King, whom Aiku then housed for recovery. Upon awakening, the Dwarf King asked why demons had freed him. Aiku showed him a matchlock gun and inquired if he could make the same. The Dwarf King confirmed he could, but was wary of being exploited by demons. Aiku expressed understanding, but highlighted the essential role of this task in achieving human and demon peace. Hearing peace, the Dwarf King was compelled to follow Aiku outside, where he saw humans and demons working together harmoniously. Though dwarves had been displaced by humans, Aiku promised peace and a rebuilt dwarf kingdom if the Dwarf King helped mass-produce matchlock guns. To prove his commitment, Aiku took him to a forge where he found his kin and son working happily, reunited with family, and provided with shelter and food. Seeing everyone and the blueprint Aiku presented, the Dwarf King was moved and agreed to cooperate. After returning to his office, Aiku's maid immediately offered to make tea. He suggested she rest and told her she could read any book there, but unfortunately the maid could not read. Aiku offered to teach her during downtime. Just then, Lilith burst in, eagerly reporting that she had brought back all the dwarves scattered around Arseno. Upon seeing the maid, Lilith became jealous, and the two started bickering. Soon after, the second senior rushed in, and they both vented their frustration on him, who always arrived exclaiming, "Trouble!" Meanwhile, the King's Alliance army was ready to move, divided into 12 large units totaling 12,000 soldiers. In contrast, Aiku's Abanirasu had only 500. How should they approach this battle? Aiku arrived at a cave with his 2 subordinates, discovering many natural saltpeter deposits inside. Exactly what he needed. These saltpeter deposits could be taken back to produce rifles for the dwarves, meeting Aiku's requirements for power and accuracy. Meanwhile, other demons were heading to this small town. Their leaders gathered in Aiku's office, reinforcements sent by Commander Serafiro. These 3 had heard about Aiku defeating Basteo, and willingly obeyed his commands. However, the enemy numbered 12,000, while they had only 2,000. The Werewolf Brigade, being elite, assumed that one could fight 6, but Aiku's troops were not all elite, and couldn't crush the enemy head-on. The Lion Brigade's commander suggested a night attack, but the enemy had magicians who could counter with illumination magic. Aiku decided to meet them here, exploiting the large army's vulnerability when its advantage turned into a disadvantage. He planned to let them attack and strike them down when their morale peaked, aiming to end the battle quickly and with minimal casualties. The human army also advanced towards them. The town buzzed with the arrival of reinforcements. Aiku checked if the young maid Sadi was scared. Knowing they came to protect, she wasn't afraid and wanted to help by preparing meals. Sadi wondered about a dish that could feed many, settling on soup. Due to Aiku's crop rotation system, the town had ample food. Aiku found a fried rice recipe in a cookbook and shared it with Sadi. She immediately started cooking in the kitchen, scrambling eggs, then adding steamed rice and continuously stirring. She then added chopped side dishes and seasonings, creating a delicious fried rice that could be made quickly in large quantities. As Aiku and Sati were about to taste it, second brother followed the aroma. Sati served him a portion, and soon Lilith also arrived. The four enjoyed the meal together, mesmerized by the dish's aroma. Lilith asked for more, and Sati served her a full plate, teasingly trying to make her gain weight, which Lilith playfully acknowledged. Second brother had no such worries, and Aiku, focused on whether the fried rice could be regular soldier rations, relaxed after second brother's high praise. A few days later, all soldiers were ready, and the city walls were fully repaired. They also had mass-produced rifles. Now, they just needed to wait quietly. At that moment, the goblin on the watchtower spotted a massive approaching army and immediately informed the soldiers. Upon receiving the news, Aiku quickly went to the city wall. Before the battle began, he gave a stirring speech to his troops. Both sides were fully prepared. The human commander, seeing such a small city and so few demon troops, was slightly disdainful. Despite having gathered the finest soldiers from various nations, he thought this was not a war, but a mere suppression. At the deputy commander's signal, the human soldiers charged out swiftly. At the same time, catapults and crossbows were activated, launching stones and arrows that filled the sky, all blocked by a barrier created by Aiku. Apart from Aiku, no other demon soldiers moved, as Aiku was still observing. Confirming that the enemy was attacking in a conventional manner, he felt confident to respond. The human commander simply ordered another attack, which again proved futile. Aiku then made the barrier emit light. However, at that moment, the barrier failed because the enemy had assembled a group of magicians who dispelled Aiku's barrier. The commander quickly sent the first team to attack. The human soldiers rushed towards the city walls, but Aiku did not let his musketeers act. Instead, he had the giants stand by the wall to throw stones and shoot arrows manually. Nevertheless, the enemy gradually approached the wall due to their numerical advantage and set up ladders. The giants stood firm on the wall, refusing to let the enemy climb up. Seeing such a fierce scene, the commander was still thinking about what to eat tonight. According to the current situation, as long as the attack continued, they would definitely win. However, wanting to finish everything before dinner, he ordered another launch of the catapult. The deputy commander reminded him that this would also cause casualties among their own soldiers, but the commander was indifferent. The deputy commander reluctantly gave the order. Aiku once again put up a glowing barrier and instructed his troops to lie down immediately. This barrier was also quickly dispelled. Stones and arrows flew, knocking down soldiers near the wall, friend and foe alike. The wall was also breached. Aiku had not expected the human commander to be so ruthless, even killing his own people. The commander was even proud of this and ordered the remaining soldiers to rush in quickly. As the human soldiers were about to enter the city, Aiku's demon army also swiftly charged out. Both sides engaged in direct combat, and the battle was far from over. The war between humans and demons has become increasingly brutal. The human commander appears relaxed despite this. The third squad has started their attack, charging directly into the battlefield. Gradually, the humans gain an advantage through sheer numbers. Even Lilith struggles to cope with the onslaught. The battlefield is too chaotic for the rifle squad to aim properly. At this point, the elite werewolf brigade is deployed. A single werewolf can overpower a group of human soldiers. It turns out that only huskies can truly compete. Now, only 2 or 3 human squads can manage to fight one werewolf. The rifle squad takes this opportunity to open fire. The rifles are so powerful that even thick shields can't stop them. Combined with the unstoppable werewolf legion, they force the human soldiers to retreat. Just as a werewolf is about to finish off a soldier, the retreat signal sounds. They reluctantly return to their base. All this is according to Aiku's strategy. Initially, he had stated the need to end the battle as quickly as possible, requiring the full force of the demon army. Meanwhile, another brigade's captain uses magical thorns to block a recently breached wall. The Werewolf Legion was ordered to retreat because they couldn't sustain a full-force battle for more than half an hour. Aiku had decided from the start to unleash full firepower as soon as they entered the battlefield, and to retreat without hesitation after 10 minutes to avoid casualties. Next, it's time for the Giant Ape Brigade to take the stage. They break through the newly repaired wall and rush outside to wreak havoc, forcing the human soldiers to retreat once again. Aiku's goal is clear: to have each brigade strike in turns, disrupting and depleting the enemy's forces. Meanwhile, the brigades not yet deployed rest and recuperate, ready to exert their maximum strength at any moment. Suddenly, a straggler climbs the city wall, nearly attacking the woman repairing the wall. Thankfully, a fellow soldier shoots just in time. With one brigade after another taking turns, it's impossible to defeat all the enemies. Now, it's time for the alchemists and gunmen. They can manipulate the enemy troops and reduce their range of attack. Aiku asks if the woman can handle it. She's willing to sacrifice her life, but Aiku immediately rejects this, emphasizing the importance of valuing one's life. He devised such a strategy to reduce casualties. The human soldiers naturally won't just sit back and wait. They prepare their launchers again, but before they can fire, the aerial brigade smashes them thoroughly. Aiku had previously investigated the enemy's military strength and the background of their commander, who comes from a noble family with a long history and is a coward, prioritizing his reputation and safety above all else. Thus, they planned to capture the leader first, insisting on taking him alive. The brigade captains naturally had no objections. So far, everything was going as Aiku had planned. Serufiro was also participating in the battle, but was assigned by Aiku to carry out another most crucial task: to hold back the enemy's rear forces. Unexpectedly, Serufiro was captivated by a very attractive man in the rear. Meanwhile, the soldiers at the front were continuously retreating, with the squads that entered the city walls being completely wiped out. The commander, in desperation, ordered a full-scale attack. His deputy tried to advise him to regroup first, but the commander stubbornly insisted on a strategy of overwhelming numbers, arguing that if 5 men couldn't defeat a demon, then 10 or 20 should try. He believed their 12,000 troops should be able to defeat a mere 2,000, otherwise, it would be a laughingstock. To boost morale, the commander even decided to lead the troops himself, which immediately invigorated the soldiers. However, this was also anticipated by Aiku, who soon created a massive fissure under the soldiers' feet, causing many to fall in, and the enemy's magicians were captured. With these magicians gone, Aiku's forces could freely use magic. The commander even fell from his horse due to the intense ground shaking, and his horse ran away, abandoning him. Aiku then confronted the commander, giving him 2 choices: retreat with his troops and spare his life, or die then and there. Without their leader, the disorganized soldiers would surely flee. The commander, still maintaining his noble demeanor, frustrated the Dwarf King so much that he struck him with an axe. As the commander kneeled, clutching his chest, the Dwarf King was about to strike again, but was stopped by Aiku. The commander then begged for mercy, promising to order a retreat. Hearing this, the soldiers quickly ran back, and the battle ended there. However, the Dwarf King warned that Aiku might one day regret his decision, but Aiku was indifferent, confident they would become stronger after this victory. The city was jubilant, with the second brother tearfully embracing Aiku, even before Lilith could. The little maid also ran over, everyone vying for Aiku's embrace. The other 4 brigade captains, accepting their loss, commented on Aiku's cleverness in promotion, evident from his tactics in this battle. Meanwhile, Captain Serufiro was confronting the man she fancied. As the enemy was about to charge, a retreat was suddenly ordered. Serufiro tenderly told him that he had just saved his life, and the man, smiling, said they might meet again if fate allowed. Aiku won the war against the human army. Immediately afterward, Serufiro planned to send him to Zenobia, anticipating a full-scale human attack on the Demon Lord's forces soon. They needed to prepare early, especially concerning supplies. Aiku's crop rotation had increased agricultural output in Ibanirasu, but it was still insufficient for a whole army. If a war broke out, there would be a food shortage. Therefore, Serufiro wanted Aiku to negotiate a trade treaty with the Federation. During this period, she would manage Ibanirasu. Aiku could not refuse the task assigned by his superior. Upon hearing the news, his subordinates rushed to his office, wanting to escort him. However, Aiku asked them to stay and manage things, as Ibanirasu had recently attracted many unemployed and refugees, leading to increased disputes. Lilith was tasked with maintaining city security, and the second brother was in charge of city governance. Aiku also prepared a management manual for them to consult in case of difficulties. Reluctantly, they agreed. Aiku departed with only Sati. After they left, Lilith realized Sati was missing, but by then, Sati was already riding with her master on the road to Zenobia, a southern trade city and member of the Trade Federation. The city was bustling with unique crops, fruits, and vegetables, and was crucial to the fate of the Demon Lord's forces. This mission was significant, as there had never been a precedent for humans and the Demon Lord's forces signing a contract. Aiku brought the human maid to demonstrate that demons and humans could coexist peacefully. Suddenly, a scream ahead prompted Aiku to rush forward. He found a group of bandits attacking a carriage containing a beautiful young lady. The leader was about to harm her when Aiku intervened. To his surprise, the girl inside resembled Sati. Without hesitation, Aiku subdued the remaining bandits and treated the guards' wounds. His gentle yet powerful demeanor captured the young lady's heart. She introduced herself as Yulia, the daughter of Zenobia's leader. Aiku, having stumbled into this situation, decided to proceed to Zenobia with Yulia. On the way, Yulia shared that she had never seen the outside world and had gone out to meet influential suitors. But talks had not gone well. She revealed a sad expression, clarifying that she had rejected them, not the other way around. Now meeting Aiku made her glad she had refused. They soon arrived in Zenobia and immediately met Yulia's mother, the city's leader, a woman who had climbed to her position through her skills and tactics. Aiku was careful not to underestimate her or try to exploit her gratitude. Noticing Aiku's hesitation, the leader sent her daughter away and directly asked him about his purpose, quickly discerning his identity and affiliation with the Demon Lord's forces. Aiku did not hide his identity, stating that he was the Lord of Ibanirasu. The leader had heard rumors about him and became serious when Aiku mentioned wanting to sign a trade treaty. The Demon Lord's army signing a treaty with humans? Historically, demons aim to eliminate humans, so why would she cooperate? Aiku quickly explained that the demons had changed, at least he fought for coexistence. Although the current Demon Lord was different from predecessors, the leader was unwilling to gamble her people's safety. Aiku couldn't guarantee there wouldn't be changes, so he shifted the topic to the recent pirate troubles she faced, specifically the Redbeard pirates that Aiku had encountered. Aiku offered to eliminate these pirates, who were a significant threat to Zenobia, costing as much as the city's annual budget. The leader agreed to consider under certain conditions. First, Aiku must eliminate the pirates. Second, he must marry her daughter, Yulia. Seeing Aiku's potential, she wanted to establish a good relationship early. News came that the Redbeard pirates had invaded the port, burning, looting, and setting up cannons. The leader urged Aiku for an answer, and he agreed before rushing to the port. After saving a guard and learning the pirates targeted a specific shipment, Aiku suggested setting a trap for the next attack, and had the guard summon more forces and weapons. Sati, feeling unhelpful, went to the kitchen where even the staff mistook her for Yulia and didn't let her work, treating her as a guest. Meanwhile, Yulia found Aiku to discuss marriage. Aiku thought she was unwilling, but she had actually fallen for him and was eager to marry him. Yulia, seeing Aiku's disinterest but not wanting to miss the opportunity, ended up crying. Sati watched quietly, feeling heartbroken, and was noticed by Aiku as she left. Unfortunately, she was followed by pirates who mistook her for the leader's daughter and planned to gift her to their captain. Sati escaped upon waking, but found herself on a ship with the pirate captain. He realized his men had captured the wrong person, but kept Sati as she fit the role of a maid well. On the other side, Aiku and his team located the guard who was with Sati. They learned that Sati had been kidnapped by pirates and assumed she was already at sea. Aiku immediately requested a ship from the leader to pursue the pirates personally. The leader provided her own ship to him. Standing on the ship, Aiku was flooded with memories of his times with the young maid, determined to rescue her. Meanwhile, Sati was dressed up and chained by Karosa, who was drunk and demanded her service as it was a maid's duty to please their master. Sati thought of her real master, who only asked her to clean and cook and was willing to protect her. She gathered courage and stated she only wanted to perform her duties as a maid, offering to cook for Karosa. Surprisingly, Karosa agreed, so Sati went to the kitchen to cook. Noticing there was no alcohol, she asked the guarding pirate for some strong liquor to use as seasoning. The pirate gave her a cup of liquor, which she poured over the steak, causing the pan to ignite. When the pirate tried to extinguish the fire, Sati deliberately splashed the remaining liquor on him, spreading the fire. While another pirate was distracted trying to put out the fire, Sati escaped from the kitchen. To avoid pirates in the corridor, she hid between boxes and barrels, finding them filled with gold and jewelry stolen from the town. She wanted to inform her master but realized they were at sea and wondered if he could reach her. Spotting a candle nearby, she thought of a way to reveal the pirates' location. Meanwhile, the pirates rushed to report to their leader that the ship was on fire. A blaze ignited by Sati, which became increasingly visible on the dark sea. Sati, hiding in a barrel, was eventually discovered by the pirates. She threw the lid and ran, but was soon bound by Karosa's magic, who declared that a bad maid must be punished and ordered his men to cut off Sati's feet. As one raised an axe, his body suddenly flew up and crashed down. At this critical moment, Aiku arrived, vowing not to let them go. Sati ran to her master's side while Aiku swiftly dealt with the pirates using magic, throwing them all into the sea. The danger now past, Sati suddenly became sentimental, aware that as a slave, being abandoned was not unusual. Aiku reassured her, stating she was his maid, and a master should not abandon his servant. Moreover, thanks to Sati setting the ship on fire, Aiku could find her in time. Just then, the leader appeared behind them, realizing Aiku was no ordinary magician. He cast a spell, shooting a water cannon, which Aiku quickly blocked. Karosa, claiming "the maid is mine," continued his magical attacks. Aiku protected Sati and countered the attacks with a barrier, escaping into the ship's cabin with her. Karosa's water cannon pursued relentlessly, piercing through the cabin. Aiku and Sati disappeared. However, just as Karosa went to check, a massive waterspout rose from the sea with Aiku holding Sati inside, sentencing Karosa to death, declaring, "You'll never pirate again." A huge vortex surged, enveloping the water and rushing forward. People on another ship witnessed this miraculous scene, followed by rain formed from the seawater. Karosa fell directly onto their ship. Aiku returned with Sati, ending everything. They rescued the young maid and captured the pirate gang, including the leader. After returning, the leader agreed to sign a trade treaty with Aiku as promised, which had to be conducted secretly to avoid being seen as a traitor to humanity. During Aiku's negotiations, Serufiro faced difficulties. Ibanirasu was attacked again, leaving the city in ruins and many demons injured. Serufiro looked disheveled, and a food shortage became critical, only sustainable for 3 more days. Ultimately, Serufiro decided to go out and fight again. Meanwhile, Aiku was unaware of all this, attending a banquet in Zenobia with Sati, both dressed in formal attire since the banquet was held in their honor. Aiku was chatting with Sati when Yulia suddenly rushed up and embraced him, reminded by Sati that it was improper. Sati then stepped forward to adjust her master's bow tie. It was Aiku's first appearance before human nobility, and the man who won Yulia's heart was the subject of much discussion. Yulia comforted Aiku to ignore the gossip and introduced them to her mother. They had signed the treaty, and Aiku was obligated to fulfill his duty by marrying Yulia. Sati looked sad as the host announced the upcoming wedding of Miss Yulia and Mr. Aiku. Aiku was unaware of this arrangement, and the leader threatened him. "If you don't marry my daughter, I'll cancel the trade treaty." Before Aiku could respond, a bright light suddenly enveloped the banquet. The demon lord appeared before Aiku, urging him to return quickly as Serufiro was in danger.